The HOA board said my sister and I could never win against the HOA, but when the vote came down to a tie, I stood up with proof that could burn their whole empire down. What happened next almost cost me everything. I opened my condo door, paint still drying, when the HOA president, Karen Larkspur, lifted her clipboard. She squinted at the deep red I'd chosen, a bold phoenix shade I loved. "Violation," she said. "HOA Karen. They told me my front door color was unapproved." Neighbors peeked through blinds, hungry for trouble, quiet as moths. Karen handed me a fine notice like it was a gift. Before we continue, please drop a like and comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Australia, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back, tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. Repaint in 48 hours or pay daily penalties. I smelled paint, sweat, fear, and the hot air of Dormont Heights. The address on her form read 1134 Kestrel Loop, Unit B. My place. My first real home. I'd saved pennies from a print shop job to buy it. That color felt like courage. I tried to smile. "Isn't there an appeal?" Karen laughed. "There's a palette, Rowan. You never asked." Her nails tapped the clipboard like a metronome for my panic. I glanced at the door again. The color made the hallway look alive, like sunrise had moved in. Karen said, "Warned you already by mail." I hadn't seen anything. Nothing. She pointed to the crowd. "You don't get special treatment." My cheeks burned. I felt 12 years old, smaller than my name, smaller than the brush in my hand. Then she lowered her voice. "Ignore this and we can escalate. Liens happen." The hallway hummed with the word foreclosure, soft and sharp, like a mosquito near my ear. I stepped back, dizzy. Karen tucked the notice under my doormat and walked off. A neighbor whispered, "Should have known better." Another laughed. And then a folded letter slid under my door. The letter wasn't from the HOA, it was from my sister. Years earlier, I was 23 and broke, charming only in the way cheap furniture is charming. I'd signed papers with shaking hands and moved into Dormont Heights with a borrowed futon. The condo smelled like dust and hope. My sister, Talia, helped me carry boxes up 3 flights. "Your mom's favorite," she said, smiling with eyes that didn't smile. I pretended not to understand. Our mom, Delphine, always used praise like coupons. Save them for the sale. Talia felt she got half off love. I felt guilty taking any extra. Money was tight. Feelings were tighter. My job at Sable Ink Printworks paid in small checks and long hours. I watched colors all day, magenta, cyan, black, and dreamed about a door that didn't apologize when the hall lights flickered. Dormont Heights promised safety, manners, and rules. The HOA posted newsletters with cheerful clip art. Karen Larkspur's name was everywhere, like wallpaper you stopped seeing until it smothered everything. Talia stayed for dinner at 140 Peregrine Terrace, her rental down the hill. We ate microwaved enchiladas and bragged about imaginary futures. She coughed when I mentioned saving for repainting the door someday. "Landlords and HOAs," she said, "two sides of the same coin that always lands on us." She laughed, then looked at the window. "Still, coins pay bills. Remember that." I told her I'd make the condo into a place people wanted to visit, not pass by. She nodded, distant, like she was already visiting somewhere that didn't want her either. The next week I met Karen. She wore a sunflower brooch and a sheriff smile. "Welcome. Please review the palette." She pointed at muted browns with names like Compliance Beige. I filed the brochure and painted the walls inside instead. Years later, when I unfolded Talia's letter on my doormat, I felt the old brochure in my memory, crackling. Talia's letter said, "I did something. Please forgive me before you read the next page." My hands shook as I read her handwriting, careful and slanted, a map of worry. "Rowan, I told Karen about your door plans weeks ago. She promised me help with my late fees." She owed money to her landlord on Peregrine Terrace, 2 months behind. Karen was also the property manager's friend, the kind who plays brunch tennis and keeps secrets in her purse. Talia wrote, "I'm so sorry. She said she'd guide you like a warning. Now she's using it to look strong. I thought it would be gentle. I was wrong. Please call. I stared at the Phoenix Red. Anger rose, then stalled. Talia and I had survived Mom's coupon love and Dad's disappearing act. We'd learned to borrow and repay, even feelings. I called her. She cried before hello. I thought she'd give you a waiver, Rowan. She promised. I listened to the hum of her old fridge, the chorus of regret. We can fix this, I said, wanting it to be true. We'll find proof the palette changed. Maybe they approved reds before. I needed a plan that felt better than blame. She whispered, Karen's husband, Rafe, owns Larkspur Renovations. He does repainting for violations. That's how she helps people, by billing them twice. My stomach fell through the floor like a drop tool. I walked the hallway, reading bulletin boards. There were invoices from Larkspur Renovations, tidy and smug. Neighbors kept quiet, like it helped them sleep. Silence can be cheaper than paint. I took photos with my flip phone anyway. Grainy but real. The hallway smelled like bleach and power. I slipped the fine notice in my pocket and looked toward the HOA office. A neighbor named Bram stepped from the stairwell and said, I know where the old minutes are, if you're brave. Bram Olivetti lived over the laundry room, where silence met quarters and steam. He wore heavy glasses and a grin that looked borrowed. Karen forgets old paper remembers, he whispered, leading me downstairs. We entered a storage closet that smelled like damp cardboard and lost intentions. Bram lifted a milk crate. Inside were minutes from years before, typed and stapled by someone who cared. I skimmed pages. Approved exterior palette revised, one line read. A color called terracotta ember was listed. Bram pointed. That was 2002. Look familiar? My heart banged like a dryer full of sneakers. Terracotta ember was my Phoenix Red, just quieter on paper. If those minutes were real, Karen's new palette was a downgrade, not the law. We copy these, Bram said. Take the originals. I thought of Talia, of late fees, of Karen's husband repainting doors into money. Secrets love daylight, but they fear copies. I folded the pages into a zip bag like treasure. Upstairs, the hallway seemed brighter. I called Talia. We have proof. She exhaled like she'd been underwater. Thank you. I'll pay you back. I said, we'll make Karen pay herself. That night I drafted an appeal. Simple language, big truth. Prior approved color matches current door, penalty improper. I asked for an open hearing. Karen liked closed doors. I liked opening them. At Sable Inc., my boss, Mr. Sloan, saw the pages and muttered, looks official. Watch your back. People who hold clipboards carry bigger clipboards behind them. He let me print for free. I slid the appeal under the HOA office door at midnight. The hallway felt like a stage before lights. Something moved in the shadows, soft feet, careful breathing, a shape watching. Next morning, the storage closet was open, and the milk crate was empty. By breakfast, the closet was a mouth without teeth. The minutes were gone, the dust freshly shifted. Someone had cleaned history. My zip bag copies suddenly felt like angels guarding a single door. Karen posted a new notice. Unauthorized tampering with association records will be reported. She smiled in the lobby like sunlight through a magnifying glass, pretty and burning. Neighbors avoided my eyes. I called Bram. He cursed softly. She knows. He handed me a battered camcorder. Record meetings. Record everything. Truth is louder when it's replayed. I thanked him and hid it in my backpack. At work, Mr. Sloan gave me a night shift to keep me off the property. I like my employees unsued, he said. I liked rent paid, fines not multiplying like rabbits with calculators. Talia called, voice small. Landlord wants full payment by Friday, or I'm out. The timeline shrank like a drying shirt. I'll help you, I said, meaning it. Love is heavier than paper. I begged the HOA for a hearing. Karen scheduled it during my shift. I switched hours. She rescheduled. Control is a game. They cheat by choosing the board. I kept showing up. In the mail came a lean warning, sharp as a staple. Non-compliance may result in foreclosure. My hands went cold. I looked at the door again. The colors still felt like me. I knocked on neighbors' doors, Mireya in 2C, Osric in 3D. Everyone had a story of fines that never ended and repainting that looked suspiciously like Rafe's invoice signature. Fear knits people together. We formed a small circle in the laundry room and planned a petition, an open meeting, a spotlight. When I got home, the Phoenix Red had a new scar. Someone dragged a key across it. Taped beneath the scratch was a note, "Stop, or we stop your sister." I read the note under the buzzing hallway light. The letters were neat, like a planner. Talia's name was a handle being yanked. Fear makes you want to hide. Love makes you stand still. I called her, voice slow. "Stay with me tonight." She arrived with a duffel and tired eyes. We cooked noodles, talked about old cartoons, laughed badly, and tried to make the night ordinary. Morning brought a hearing notice. Finally, meeting at Community Room C, 102 Nightjar Court, 6 p.m. I packed the camcorder, copies, petition sheets, and a stubborn heartbeat that wouldn't sit down. Karen presided at a long folding table like a queen on a throne built by staples. Rafe sat beside her, casual and helpful. Other board members stared at the floor, counting tiles. I stood and read my appeal in simple words. The HOA allowed terracotta ember in 2002. My door matches that. The fines are not fair. I held up the copies. They glowed. Karen sniffed. "These are forgeries." Rafe spread his hands. "We want harmony." Harmony sounds nice when you're the one tuning everyone else. I hit record on the camcorder. A red light winked. Talia stood too. I told Karen about the door because she promised help with my rent. She didn't help. She used me. The room shifted, a bench creaking under new weight. Mireya presented the petition, signatures from residents tired of fear-priced paint. Bram whispered, "Say the law." I quoted the open meeting rule I'd memorized. Simple. Karen's brooch trembled. Karen declared a recess and stormed out, Rafe trailing. Doors slammed. When they returned, a security guard flanked them, asking me to stop recording. I lifted the camcorder higher. The guard leaned in and said, "Off the record, check the maintenance closet above the boiler." After the meeting, I followed the guard's hint. The maintenance closet above the boiler was hot and crowded with old paint cans. Behind them, a locked cabinet sulked like a secret with a padlock. Bram arrived with a screwdriver like a prayer. We nudged the lock. It surrendered. Inside were files labeled Historic Approvals, dusty and exact. Terracotta ember winked again from official pages, stubborn as sunrise. We copied everything. I felt light, like someone had turned on a personal sky. "We need witnesses," I said. Mireya smiled. "Let's make something they can't hide, a celebration with proof." Saturday afternoon, we held a color potluck on the lawn by 104 Nightjar Court. Neighbors brought chips, salsa, and copies of the old approvals. Kids chalked sunsets on the sidewalks, sweet and loud. I set up a tripod, camcorder recording. We read the minutes aloud like a ceremony. Terracotta ember approved. People clapped. Talia leaned on my shoulder, and for once, her breathing was steady. Karen showed up furious, Rafe behind her with his estimate pad. "This gathering isn't authorized," she said. "Take down that camera. Return stolen records." Her words were sharp, but our pages were brighter. The cop car arrived, blue lights spinning like anxious thoughts. 2 officers stepped out. One squinted at me. "Rowan Keats? My cousin works at Sable Inc. Says you're stubborn and fair." I nodded, sweating. The officer listened to both sides. He looked at the copies, then at Karen. "These seem real." "Ma'am, process matters." Karen's smile thinned into a line you could trip over. Then the second officer radioed something and looked up, surprised. "Ma'am, we're getting reports about irregular HOA accounts." His voice had started calm. It ended curious. A resident accountant, Osric, raised his hand and said, "I can explain those numbers, if you let me." Osric stood with a binder thick enough to stop a door. "I audit for a living." I reviewed annual statements. Funds earmarked for necessary repainting went mostly to Larkspur renovations. Percentages don't lie. Karen bristled. We follow bids. Osric tapped a page. There are no competing bids. Just estimates matching fines. And here, fines increased right after the new pallet was adopted. The air felt electric. Rafe folded his arms. We provide quality. Osric nodded. Maybe. But quality doesn't excuse conflict of interest. Residents deserve transparency. Doors aren't the M's. The crowd murmured, tired and brave at once. The officer cleared his throat. We're not accountants, but this needs an independent review. For now, no more enforcement on disputed pallet items. He looked at my door like a witness protected. Karen announced, emergency board session. Meeting adjourned. She tried to leave with the file copies. I stepped back, camcorder high. These are public to residents, I said, voice shaking but standing. Talia squeezed my hand. Proud of you, she said. It felt like sunlight on a cold driveway. My anger softened into focus. Revenge didn't need shouting. It needed records, patience, neighbors. We scheduled a special election. Mireya, Osric, and Bram agreed to run. I asked Talia to run too. She hesitated. They won't forgive me. I said, show them how to do better. The community room filled like a church for real life. People signed in. Kids colored ballots on the edges. Mr. Sloan arrived and nodded, proud and cranky. Karen sat tight-lipped, tapping her brooch. Before voting, Osric explained the accounts in simple words. Money should paint walls, not pockets. Heads nodded. Talia stood next, voice clear. I made a mistake. I'll make amends publicly. Ballots dropped, counted, and the room held its breath as a tie was announced. For president, Karen and Talia. We needed a tiebreaker vote. The bylaws said the outgoing treasurer would cast it. The treasurer, a quiet man named Calder, had watched everything with the face of a closed mailbox. Calder stood, cleared his throat, and held up a checkbook ledger. There's one more thing, he said. A transfer from beautification to consulting traced to a Larkspur family account. The room shivered. Karen shouted, slander. Rafe stepped forward. The officer from before returned, calm and firm. The city will review. For now, step away from the table. Silence arrived like a guest everyone respected. Calder looked at Talia. I vote for transparency. He filled out the tiebreaker form and handed it to Osric. Osric read it aloud. Talia Keats is the new HOA president. The room exhaled. Karen forgot her smile. Rafe stared at his shoes as if they might run without him. Talia hugged me, whispering, this isn't victory. It's chores. I laughed, relieved. Chores can save worlds. The board voted to pause fines, audit accounts, and honor historic approvals until a new pallet could be made publicly. The phoenix red on my door finally belonged to the hallway again. But Karen wasn't finished. Papers arrived. She'd hired a lawyer. The letter accused us of defamation, theft, and unauthorized gatherings that endangered community harmony. Big words trying to scare small wallets. Osric called a legal aid clinic in town. Mireya gathered affidavits. Bram digitized the old minutes so monsters couldn't eat paper again. Talia posted meeting recordings like bedtime stories for anxious neighbors. Let her sue, Mr. Sloan said, practical as tape. Truth fits in court better than lies do. I slept that night with my door open to the hallway, the red catching moonlight. 3 weeks later, we stood inside a courtroom that smelled like coffee and old rules. Karen entered with Rafe and a tall attorney. The judge looked at us and frowned. The judge said, before we begin, I have a letter from the state about your HO. The judge read the letter. State regulators had opened an inquiry into the HOA's finances before our suit. Our evidence sped it up. Karen's attorney blinked. Rafe shifted. We stood steadier. The judge dismissed Karen's claims and warned about retaliation. Community associations serve communities, not companies, she said, plain as a traffic sign. Karen sat very still, like a painting forgetting to breathe. Months passed. The audit confirmed what Osric suspected. The board negotiated refunds and new rules: open bidding, clear pallets, public minutes posted at 102 Nightjar Court and online. Boring is powerful when it's fair. Talia worked like a lighthouse, steady and bright. She paid her arrears and rebuilt trust one hallway at a time. She apologized in meetings until people stopped needing to hear it. That's leadership. I kept my Phoenix Red, now printed in the new palette under a better name, Heartline Red. Kids in chalk drew hearts around my threshold. Doors across Dormont Heights began to look alive. Years later, after the inquiry and fines for Karen and Rafe, their house went to sale. I bought it cheap with a decade of slow savings, then rented it below market to Mireya's niece. On move-in day, I painted that house's door the same color. A neighbor asked if it was approved. I smiled. It is now. The street felt like a promise kept, wired to the sky. Talia and I had Sunday dinners at 140 Peregrine Terrace no more. She'd moved to 318 Wren Hollow, closer to the school playground. We argued about sauces and laughed about bylaws. I'm 45, telling this because small doors open big fights, and big fights save small lives. Karen once said my front door color was unapproved. I told her it was home. And when neighbors knock now, they find light. When fear knocks, it finds records. When lies knock, it finds a camera. I open, every time, with Heartline Red behind me, approved forever.